Ignored by friends after 3 years, I discovered a group chat named after me with a ridiculous photo. "Why do you keep coming back when you just get bullied?" said my so-called best friend. With just 2 months until graduation, I'm left wondering if I'll face the same betrayal in college. My title is a bit simplified. However, I am going to let you know that this is a long read, as there is a lot of detail. For context, I am a senior in high school, and my friends have completely ignored and cut ties with me for the past 6 months or so. I do not particularly care about them individually, as I have only about 2 months left with them graduation, but I want to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. I have genuinely been good friends with these individuals for about 3 years. I invited a couple of them into the group and took a few of them on trips. However, I tend to avoid conflict and arguments by laughing them off, which might not be the best approach. To start, around the end of last year, my friends and I had a little party and get-together. Towards the end, we went on a walk around the neighborhood. I was not in my right mind, if you understand what I mean, and neither were the others. One of the guys, whom I have known my whole life and was practically best friends with, started talking about me and my family. He said some really messed up things and then called me a coward when I would not fight him. I told him I did not want to because he was my friend and he pushed me. I pushed him back, he punched me, and then I punched him back. I immediately called an Uber and left. A few weeks later, I unfortunately lost a game. I will not disclose what it was, as it will be obvious to them if they see this, and had to face a punishment that the winners were allowed to determine. They gave me something that would reflect very poorly on me and potentially jeopardize my future college prospects. I refused and requested a more manageable punishment, preferably one that would not affect my future. They told me to stop being a coward and to accept the punishment. They also decided that I would not be allowed to attend any hangouts or parties until I completed the punishment. I assumed they were joking. However, I was not invited anywhere for 3 months. If I reached out online, I would be left on read, ignored, or responded to with hostility, being told I had to complete my punishment. They would not even speak to me at school without bringing this up, and I began to notice that they would not engage with me in person either. I was very upset by this, especially because while I have other friends, no one really does anything outside of school. It is just this group, so I feel somewhat trapped with them. At one point, I struggled to sleep because I was worried about this situation, whether it would resolve, and more importantly, being completely ignored by people I had considered my best friends just a couple of months earlier. There were several times when I would find out about a gathering or party, ask to attend, and be told that I could not come. Two of the girls in this group felt bad and attempted to have me invited, but these guys remained firm, even stating things like they assumed I would not want to be there. Eventually, I received an invitation to a party hosted by one of these girls, and afterward, things seemed to improve. I started receiving invitations again, even if I had to learn about plans by overhearing these guys discuss them or by reaching out after the hangout had already started. However, at one of these parties, my friend opened his phone and I noticed a group chat notification from a group chat named after me. Everyone was part of it, the entire group, both guys and girls. I was quite devastated. I did not let on that I knew, but over the next week or so, I observed that people were messaging in it. We had a previous group chat with the same people, but it had become inactive since I stopped receiving invitations. In the week since noticing this, I have picked up on some details. They all plan things in this group chat, which is why I never hear about anything. More frustratingly, the background photo of this group chat is an unflattering picture of me, taken at an awkward moment when I was caught blinking and turning my head. Long story short, it does not represent me well. Then, yesterday, when we all gathered, I saw that the picture had changed to one of me passed out on a couch. Returning to the narrative, things were as smooth as they could be until a couple of weeks ago. I went to the usual hangout spot, a good friend's house, who invited me over as he is part of this group and probably the only one who has not treated me poorly. We were just having fun. Around midnight, we were all pretty intoxicated and sitting on the couch when one of these guys stood up in front of us and began yelling at me. The guy who punched me earlier also joined in. He said things like, "Why do you hang out with us? We all hate you. And why do you keep coming back when you are just bullied?" He continued discussing my exclusion and other matters, however the details after that escaped me. He ended up slapping me and saying other things. I took an Uber home, wrote down what I remembered from that night to ensure I did not forget, and went to bed, but not before messaging him to ask why he treated me poorly that night. I wanted to give him a chance to apologize, but I woke up to a message stating, "I do not remember what happened, but what I said was the truth." This guy had been my best friend for about 3 years. We got along great and had hardly any issues prior to this. One of the other guys recorded the entire incident and shared it in their group chat. One of the girls responded with laughter, asking what I had done to provoke him, as if I had instigated the whole situation and it was a regular occurrence. I know this because the guy next to me was on his phone and I caught a glimpse of the chat. Regarding what he said, I do not truly feel bullied by these individuals. Sure, there were times I felt left out, but now I mostly attend everything, even if I do not participate in the planning. In person, we get along fine. It has felt a bit strange over the past few months, at least from my perspective, but I try to ignore it. There have been instances when I show up and one of the girls will say something like, "Oh, my name, you came too," or "Oh, I did not know you were coming." We never argue or have any issues unless someone has had too much to drink. They always seem happy to see me when I arrive at various places. At school, we say hello in the hallways. I stopped sitting with them at lunch back in January. Now with the school year nearing its end and my friendship with all of them also fading, I decided to ask around about the group chat and its purpose. I asked a good friend of mine whom I have known my entire life and who has also not been involved in any of this, but is passively connected, what the group chat was about. I trust this guy, and he is one of the two people in this entire group I will keep in touch with after high school. He claimed he had no knowledge of the group chat and that it does not exist. Why would it, as they would not treat me that way, and that I was overthinking? I inquired with another guy who also claimed not to be aware of it, saying it does not exist and is unnecessary. Two other people echoed this sentiment. I know they are all in this together. I simply want to understand why I am not included and what happens inside that chat. That last part occurred last night. I seek advice on how to endure this situation. I have not done anything to anyone in this group. I drive them around when they are unable to drive. I talk to them at school and I used to check in on them. Currently, I despise this situation. It feels strange to know they have a group chat without me and with my name as the title. Do they feel remorse? They must realize that I am aware of this by now. I feel as if these individuals do not take me seriously, which makes me extremely bitter. I have about 2 months left with these people. I want advice on how to get through these final months. It feels uncomfortable to be around those who engage in activities without me. I have to pretend to be friends with these individuals and I cannot tolerate it. However, outside of this group, literally nothing occurs. No one does anything. As someone who is somewhat extroverted, I need to be around people. It is fine in person, as I have mentioned, but I just feel odd. If I attempt to address the situation by individually asking how to resolve my apparent issues with the group, or what I may have done to cause this, they just shut down or respond by saying they are not sure what the problem is or deny any problem exists. Since someone is likely to tell me to stop hanging out with these individuals, I genuinely cannot. Some of my best friends are in this group, so I cannot leave. Additionally, I have invested 4 years into these guys. Also, no one outside of this group engages in activities. I would just be stuck at home. Recently, this situation has significantly impacted my self-esteem. I am starting to doubt myself, excessively analyzing anything I do in social settings to see if I seem strange while worrying about my college experience, whether this whole situation will recur. I genuinely need advice on how to survive the next few months. How do I get along with this group? How can I overlook their apparent issues with me? I have not done anything to these individuals, and when I inquire about what happened, they brush it aside as if they do not know either. I do not want this to happen again in college, but that is all I can really think about now. I apologize for venting. I just truly need help with this. Thank you if you read all of this. Summary: friends have been treating me poorly for the past 5 months, and I am unsure how to proceed and make amends with them. Story 2. After 12 years of love, my wife announced, I need to feel normal about us again, and took a solo vacation. Since then, she's withdrawn, saying she feels lost and trapped. How do I reignite our connection after all we've been through? I will attempt to keep my response concise while providing a brief overview of my relationship. I am a 31-year-old male, and my wife is a 30-year-old female. We met nearly 12 years ago in my home country on Tinder, of all places. My wife was there for a summer job and internship, and we fell in love almost instantly. We spent every moment together during the 3 months she was there, and before she returned home, we decided that she would move to my country in a year or I would move to hers. I took a chance and moved to be with her earlier, as the job market and possibilities were dreadful back home anyway. We have now been together for 12 years and married for 4 years. Throughout our relationship, we have always mutually respected, loved, and cared for one another. Until recently, we have traveled and explored the world together, advanced our careers, and purchased and fully paid off our home 2 years ago. Generally speaking, we consider ourselves very fortunate. It may sound sentimental, but to be honest, I have loved her every day of my life since our initial meeting and connection. Our relationship has felt effortless. It has never seemed like work, and I still enjoy spending my days together. We have experienced happiness. However, since last year, things have changed. We began trying for a baby, and on our first attempt, we became pregnant. We were ecstatic, and I had never felt more loved and joyful. I was thrilled to become a father, but I was also incredibly happy that she was expecting and felt fulfilled, which is a recurring issue I will discuss later. A month and a half into the pregnancy, she was informed that she was being terminated from her job, which we later contested, as we have labor protections in the European Union. And 2 weeks later, she was told she had a miscarriage. losing the baby before reaching 10 weeks. I struggle to articulate my feelings about this experience and how much we supported and loved one another during that time. We cried, embraced, planned, discussed, and were there for each other. Her pain was understandably different, and the entire experience and trauma of losing that joy hit hard. Nevertheless, we have always been very open with each other. After grieving and seeking professional help, the doctors reassured us that miscarriages are common and nothing is wrong with either of us. At one point, she asked me to find and purchase a small angel figurine to help us remember and to symbolize closing that chapter of our lives. Shortly after, I suffered a serious injury while playing with our dog. I threw a ball that bounced over a fence, which was not particularly tall. I jumped over, but when I landed, my finger got caught, resulting in what is known as a ring avulsion. Consequently, I lost half of my finger unexpectedly. I believe this experience shattered her. She silently resents me for getting injured. I struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder for a while and spent the first couple of months feeling down. This does not mean I disengaged from my family or the world, but I was dealing with some depression and feelings of shame. Although I began to feel better, I would still experience random moments of vulnerability, usually when we were together and had no other worries. Eventually, my wife began to get upset and withdraw during these moments. I had explained to her that the therapist I consulted for a few sessions advised that it can take up to a year for my body to adjust to this change. To her credit, she did not express this disappointment to me directly, but I could sense that she felt let down that I wasn't displaying enough masculinity. It was just a bit of finger. Despite my efforts, I cannot explain why I grieved that finger so intensely. It truly felt like losing a family member for the first few weeks. In any case, I feel like I've returned to my normal self for several months now. The injury no longer bothers me, and I can hardly perceive a difference between my hands. Nonetheless, I still feel guilty for getting injured while she was vulnerable, particularly because we continued trying for a baby after I returned from the hospital, but we have not been successful in getting pregnant again. For the past month or so, my wife has been unhappy and withdrawn. She spends time on her phone, scrolling through social media, and shows no interest or enthusiasm when we are together. At one point, I confronted her about my discomfort with her behavior. She admitted that she feels lost, lacks purpose, and is unhappy, expressing that our connection feels different and uncertain. It culminated in her forfeiting a vacation we had planned together to Hawaii, which was fully paid for too, as she won it through her job. She chose to go alone instead, stating that she needed time to feel normal about our relationship again and believed that time apart would be beneficial for us. Although I did not agree, I respected her decision. During those 2 weeks, she barely made an effort to reach out to me or anyone in our family. I had to actively try to contact her, but she assured me that this separation was helping and that she did not want to break up. I picked her up from the airport today and decided to let go of all the hurt. I simply miss her. It seems pointless to dwell on something I ultimately agreed to. Honestly, I had a good time by myself too. It was a genuine moment of growth for me as I learned that I could enjoy my own company in adverse circumstances. Unfortunately, nothing appears to have changed. She remains awkward and withdrawn, lacking the initiative to show affection even after I communicated my need for her affection. When we returned home and settled down, she started crying because she still does not feel any emotional connection. I also found it touching yet odd that she was wearing her wedding and engagement rings, which is not typical behavior after my injury. I do not believe there are any ulterior motives at play. There is no other man or influence involved. We are not experiencing intimacy problems. On the contrary, it has been genuinely exciting and fulfilling for several months, though we never really had issues in that regard. She previously admitted that she feels trapped and unhappy and expresses guilt over my sacrifices for her. However, I have never expected anything in return, which is why I struggle to understand the root of this issue. Looking back, she has frequently grappled with feelings of not belonging, concerns about being liked by others, lacking purpose in her life, and overall feelings of inadequacy, leading her to become avoidant and distant. From her perspective, she claimed that I had become overly reliant on video games and that my demeanor had become grumpy over the past year, which I did not realize. I apologized for this, took her concerns seriously, and have reduced my video game time from approximately 10 to 12 hours a week to half that amount or even less. I have also taken on most of the household responsibilities since I work from home throughout the week and typically have less work than she does. We both dislike these tasks, but they need to be accomplished. I made this decision and do not regret it or hold it against her. She also communicated to her parents that she needed those 2 weeks apart because she felt I was not present or supportive every time a pregnancy test came back negative and that she wasn't feeling my presence. To me, that was the most shocking revelation, as I believed I had been expressing my feelings. Of course, I was profoundly sad. It was surprising that this became such a significant issue without her first addressing it with me. We had discussed and agreed not to stress and to keep trying for the first year. If it did not work, we would consider testing for fertility issues. I recognize that it may be inappropriate to judge her feelings, but I felt hurt by that statement. I consider myself a devoted partner and husband and would appreciate knowing if I did something wrong, as there were no signals beforehand, and I did not behave in a way that could be construed as uncaring. Honestly, I have written a great deal and feel lost. I have suggested and expect therapy for both of us. This shift came as a surprise. At no point did my wife signal issues within our relationship or request that I make changes. There has been no discussion or indication of problems, and I believed everything was fine until now. I feel resentment toward her for not communicating with me and for not actively working on our relationship. I do not want to reach this point, but I have considered moving out of our home, which made me cry deeply, as I genuinely do not know what else to do. If things do not improve, I will be exceedingly stressed. Any advice would be appreciated. Summary: after a year marked by loss, our relationship has changed, and my wife seems to be falling out of love with me. Please lend me your ear.